Hello. Hello, hello. Okay, good morning, everyone. Sorry for super delay. I mean, everybody understand today we have the protest in front of the Blue Zone. So many people, they came here with a little bit delay. So let's start our event right now. So thank you for joining our Staff United Fund side event in our pavilion. We are Staff United Fund headquartered in New York, and we have the global different office in different cities. I'm Jack. I'm consultant for the United Nations, also the COP advisor for Staff United Fund. So we welcome everyone to join us today. We will deliver the finance for net zero future, mobilizing private capital for just climate transition. So I do believe that's a very important issue, especially the whole COP30 or even before COP29, COP28, we all talk about how exactly to mobilize the capital to climate change or to climate action. Paris Agreement, Article number 6, or all other private sector, public sector cooperation, everybody need to understand how to provide the financial incentives to the carbon market. So today we have this honor to invite many experts from the private sector, from the government office, and from the NGO, from the think tank to share their idea how to use capital power to improve our carbon market. And from the very first, I would like to invite our Executive Director of Staff United Fund, the Rebecca Shen. She give us the opening remark. Floor is yours, Rebecca Shen.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think the volume is okay, right? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Staff United Fund Pavilion here in Berlin. I'm Rebecca Shen. On behalf of the staff, it's truly an honor to open today's session, Finance for a Net Zero Future, mobilizing private capital for just climate transition. It means a great deal to us that you are here at Staff Pavilion, the very heart of our scene, sustainability in action. This COP30 has been widely described as the natural COP, and I believe this captures not only the scientific urgency, but the political and moral moment we are standing in. Berlin is not an incidental location. It's a living reminder of what is at stake, a system that breathes, regulates, nurtures, and sustains humanity. After the first global stock tag, we now know we are off track not only on emissions, but also on finance, adaptation, equity, and nature protection. And that's why today climate governance is no longer just about carbon curves. It's about nature, people, justice, and community survival. This is no longer the era of announcing pledge. This is the era of action. But action cannot happen without finance. So the global financing gap for just transitions is massive, and the public funds alone cannot touch the scale of what is needed. We need de-risking tools, trustworthy carbon and natural markets, branded finance structure, policy alignment, and innovations that allow funding to reach frontline communities. We need not just more money, but better money. Across my work, I often describe the positive value mindset, sustainability not as a cost, but as a value creation engine. The triple bottom line only truly scales when it is powered by capital, when private investment aligns with integrity and long-term purpose. It becomes one of the most powerful drivers of transformation. This belief is one of the reasons staff built the pavilion. Our spirit, sharing, trust, unity, family. It's not a slogan, but a framework for collaboration under this year's theme, Action in Sustainability. Staff Pavilion served as the core sector platform connecting the Asia-Pacific, the America, Africa, Europe, youth leaders and actors across finance, policy, technology, and civil society. Today's conversation is about recognizing that climate finance is not just about funding transitions, it's about funding just transitions. Finance must address equity, resilience, rights, community governance, and natural protection. Private capital must involve in purpose, not only scale, from passive to catalytic, from extractive to regenerative, from transactional to trustworthy. As we gather in balance, I invite us to approach this moment with shared clarity. Action is the only path forward. We need the courage to rethink financial architecture, creativity to design cross-border solutions, and collaboration across all sectors. If finance can shift from intention to action, fragmentation to coherence, and short-term to long-term value, then the world we discuss at COP30 can become the one we actually build. Thank you for being here this morning, for your expertise, commitment, and courage. From Taipei to Berlin, from boardrooms and grassroots communities, we are united by one belief. Action is the only path forward, and the time for action is now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your remarkable opening remark. As Rebecca Shen just mentioned, finance is the core of the carbon market, or even at the core of the whole climate action. So which is very important and bring us today, which we are going to introduce how exactly innovation, private sector, government office, think tank, and NGO, all of us can work together to achieve the 1.5 degrees Celsius under the Paris Agreement. That's possible, but it requires everybody's effort. So next, I would like to invite my good friend, and also thank you for coming from the long way from the Blue Zone. So the Lincoln Deal, he will bring us from carbon market to climate trust, how blockchain can rebuild integrity in the ESG ecosystem. Lincoln, the floor is yours. Thank you. Yes, the next page. Okay. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Well, first and foremost, I must apologize. I'm the one who actually caused the delay in the program today. I wanted to dress like this, but fortunately I didn't. And I dressed like that because I have to walk about 4 kilometers here because of the protest. I think on second thoughts, it'll be better for me to wear shorts, right? And one thing, I definitely don't run very fast. I'll try to improve on that. But that said, this is something that I'm really appreciative of. I'd like to thank the STUF United Front. For all of you who are around here, come and join us. I would like to share more. And let's hear from what I have been kindly invited by my good friend here, Jack Huang. Really delighted to be here. And on the note of what Rebecca has said, which is true, I think the world right now, after the COP29, and while we are in the process of COP30, is very much looking for a reset. The climate finance is extremely challenged, but we are not seeing the real action. And if the real action continues to be absent, then the global alliance in terms of our total world's commitment towards climate change is much to be desired. I know time is a little limited for me. I'll try to make sure that it's economically used, but I would also like to catch up on some of the points during the upcoming panel session, which I hope all of you will be here. Well, first and foremost, I would like to talk a little bit about who we are at 013. 013 won an award at the COP28 in Dubai 2 years ago by winning the blockchain award awarded by the COP28 presidency, the Dubai Central Bank, the Ministry of Finance in UAE, and of course the Bank of International Settlements as well. I think what we believe we could do is the usage of blockchain to really close the climate financing gap that is much needed at the moment. There's lots of documentation that we're seeing. The gap itself runs into trillions of dollars. How we are going to do that, we have some thoughts. We love to be able to exchange ideas with everyone here. There are lots of experts on the ground. I just see my fellow panelists, Mr. Sean Kidney coming in, and I'm sure he will have a lot more to share, and that's why I hope all of you here will stay on to hear about us in terms of what we're trying to do. Key thing here for all of us at 013, we believe in the four process. The securitization of assets. What we have seen over the last few years, or in fact the last few months particularly, is the loss of the concessional aid grant that's been given to the Global South. And that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. In the hands of the Global South and some of the developing countries, as you know, are immense amounts of assets which needs to be translated, securitized, digitized, and put into a proper, robust financial infrastructure custody system that would aid and help in the trading of these assets. And by trading, I'm referring to the entry of funds and investments that would obviously close the gap along the way. Busy slide, but what I'm trying to say here is simple. Traditional real-world assets has been growing, but let's not ignore the possibility and the opportunities that it plays on the digital real-world assets itself. From a compounded annual growth rate, you can see that they are much higher based on the research in terms of returns overall for investors, which we'll talk about that. Now, what we are trying to do here, and I think for 013, is that we believe that the overall assets itself will be able to be digitized. Now, I think some of the policymakers, we are involved in the Article 6. We are involved in some of the projects related to CORSIA. Very often, funding is a big issue. Banks don't typically understand how such organic assets could be financed. There are fears, naturally, because of a lack of understanding. And there's also the problem of traditional finance. But I don't think traditional finance is to be blamed for this. For us, I think what we're trying to do is to look at the opportunities that could come about through digital finance. And for some of the very young people out here, I'm sure you do understand things related to cryptocurrency, USDT, Bitcoin. Sometimes when we talk about digital currency, people think that it's black, it's gray, it's not good money. But essentially, it is just like traditional finance if you put in the normal governance, control, and making sure that all those things could be managed properly to reduce the risk of money laundering and many other things. It is the same with the green assets. The decarbonized assets all have their own problems. Not all are bad. Some would have greenwashing problems. Some have double counting. And you know all those issues as well. And over at 013 itself, we have the platform that allows us basically to connect the different points. A lot of times what we are seeing here with decarbonization is that the forests are in Brazil. The funding could come from Europe. The actual buyer could be from Saudi Arabia, and it will be retired in another place, which leads to a lot of things like a spaghetti. How do we connect everything together? It's very much through blockchain, and to ensure that all the information could be cross-exchange, managed, custodized. And of course, the aim of the game is to make sure that the information is there for investors to come in and close the finance gap as we're talking about. So essentially, this is what we do. We work with multiple financial institutions at the moment. Recently, we were in Luxembourg, and we are looking at creating a Luxembourg fund, which I think a lot of people in Brazil will be familiar, because some of the Brazil sovereign bonds are actually listed in the green digital finance exchange over in Luxembourg. And what we are trying to do here is that to build even greater opportunities for digital finance, particularly in Luxembourg, given the fact that it's a very traditional finance hub in Europe, if not the world itself. So, a little bit technical, but what we are trying to do here ultimately is that the bridging of all this information will essentially allow the public finance, the private capital, and also the digital finance to really come together to create a much bigger pool of accessibility for some of these investments itself. And we do that basically through our platform, the 013, which I mentioned to you, was an award winner for the FinTech Blockchain Award 2 years ago. Now, that's basically more of the ending slide. But what I'm trying to show here is our beliefs in the 7 Cs. We see that there's a lot of connectivity, and that's the C. We work a lot with the communities. At the end of the COP29, 013 and its upcoming foundation was involved in the Azerbaijan government creation of the Global South NGO network. The NGO network, just like the 013 network, plans to rally everybody, bring in the resources, the information, the talents, the capacity building, and ultimately ensuring that we are aligned to the SDG goals that we truly believe in. So on that, I hope I have not exceeded the time. And once again, truly, I hope more of you will come in and join us for the next hour of panel, and hopefully to hear your contributions, your fears, and your challenges as well. But we are going to make it together for climate finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your remarkable sharing about the blockchain and the climate financing. So I do believe that's a very innovative solution for exactly for how we can combat the global warming. So thank you, Lincoln, for your very interesting sharing. And next, I would like to invite our very important speaker, Mr. Sean Ketney. He is the CEO of the Climate Bond Initiative, and he will bring us how climate funds are reshaping the bank strategy, insurance products, and readjusted capital decision. So floor is yours, Mr. Sean. Thank you for your coming.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about something that is a bit weird in daily life. Bond markets, capital flows. When we look at what we have to do to address climate change, getting emissions down, more electric cars, less petrol cars, protecting the forest, because that's part of the resilience of nature we need. Preparing agriculture in Brazil to be future fit. There's a lot of things we have to do. But the global economy is driven by big chunks of money. It's driven by the global pension funds, the global insurance funds, the global asset managers. That group manages $130 trillion US of money. That's the group that has to believe this is important if we are to see change. If they don't think that changing investment practices are important, it's going to be really difficult for us to change, because Bank Itaú will keep making loans the old way instead of making loans the new way. Because the incentives we can get to do stuff in the forest will be the old incentives, not the new step. That is to cut down forests, as we saw in the past, not to protect forests. Now, the US economy is about 27 trillion. So these groups of investors are way bigger as a group than any country. And they're not tied to governments, because they've got a very specific job by legal mandate, which is to make sure that you, when you retire, can get a pension. Or when you cash in your insurance policy, can get the money back. They're not supposed to listen to government. They have to listen to how best to get the money to pay you out when you need it. That works for us because they are run by actuaries who are looking at the long term And when they look at the long-term risk to their portfolios, which is how they save money to pay you money when you need it, they discover there's this big problem. There's this elephant called climate change, and it freaks them out. Because climate change, as it starts happening, and it started, heat, floods, droughts around the world, as it started, is beginning to affect investments. Over the last 15 years, in the insurance, oh, thank you, that was much better, wasn't it? In the insurance industry in the last 15 years, losses from insurance companies who haven't properly managed the risk of climate change have gone whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They've had to change how they manage their liabilities because of the impact of climate change. And they're starting to think, yikes, what can we do? Well, I'm going to tell you some of the things they're doing already. Insurance companies are making it really expensive to insure in some places. So Donald Trump's mansion in Florida is no longer covered by commercial insurance companies who have proper actuaries because they say it's local. There are so many hurricanes coming through, they're going to have to pay out money every couple of years. So instead, Donald Trump has had to go to his friends in the state of Florida and get them to provide him insurance, which means every Florida citizen is going to pay for when Mar-a-Lago gets washed away by the hurricane. That's what politics does to you. The commercial sector, the insurance funds, they understand this problem. And behind my project that I'm talking about is how they're beginning to understand. We have to invent a new future. We are in the process of inventing a new future. Clean energy around the world is already becoming cheaper than fossil fuel energy, thanks to the work of some governments in Europe and in China. That's a part of the invention, but there's a lot more. It's how we manage our cities. It's how we do transport. It's how we manage our land and our agriculture. It's many parts. We have to face the fact that droughts are going to become more severe. The Amazon has been very low for the last 2 years. It's going to flood some years and then become low again. If we keep deforesting the Amazon may collapse as a forest area, which will have a flow-on effect to agriculture in Brazil because the Amazon creates the rainfall that the cattle farmers and the soya farmers use. There's a cycle here. We need to start managing differently. Floods are becoming normal around the world. Much bigger floods than ever before. People are having to move. We know that there are solutions everywhere for this. We have been told for 30 years what the solutions are. We have just not been listening. Yes, it's clean energy. Brazil is doing fantastically on clean energy. Taiwan is doing so-so on clean energy. Has got to do a lot better. Its ambitions are not strong enough so far. China is now doing well on clean energy. Globally, last year, no longer were we investing in fossil fuel for new energy. 93% of all investment in electricity generation last year was clean energy. Whoa, that is a win. We are making progress. It's also transport. Everything has to be electric. Everything. The ethanol we use in cars in Brazil, in future will go to aviation because aviation has to get away from kerosene fast and start using biofuels. But we're already seeing electric cars everywhere in Brazil, as we are around the world. Last year in Ethiopia, 60% of all cars sold were electric. But what's really important is mass transit. This is transport for those of us who can't afford a car. But actually, even those of us who afford a car shouldn't be in a car. We should be in an electric bus or a rail because it's much more efficient use of land and energy. We need to grow electric transport. We need to grow fast railways. We need to grow metro systems. Sao Paulo is the same size as Beijing. Sao Paulo has 8 metro lines. Beijing has 100 metro lines. Tokyo, which is the biggest city in the world, has huge numbers of railway lines everywhere. That's what every country needs in the future. The financing of that will come from pension funds and insurance funds around the world. We've been developing guidance for what qualifies. Last week, the Brazilian government published its taxonomy of sustainable finance, which is just a shopping list for what to do. We at Climate Bonds helped develop that for the Brazilian government. We now have 50 countries around the world with shopping lists for the future starting to happen. And no, Taiwan doesn't have one yet. Why not? Local, you're going to go and fix that for me. China does. Australia does. Brazil does. Europe does. This is to make it easy for us, for our bankers, for the investors, for the government officials to know what to do and get rid of the confusion, because there is confusion. What is sustainable agriculture? I don't know. I need experts. This process brings together scientific experts from all around the world who then advise on what are the things that are required to make our economies, our societies, our nature future fit, because it's not, because the world is changing. Remember, we've lost the fight to stop climate change. It has started. What we're now on a road to do is to stop catastrophic climate change. Catastrophic climate change, which is still looking like it might happen, will mean that Belém will not be here in 2050, because Belém will be underwater. That's what we're looking at. If we can get emissions down and respond, we still have time, we can stop Belém disappearing. It'll still have to do some work. The waterfront's going to change. Ilha Kombu across is probably going to disappear. But at least we can stay living here. Catastrophic climate change, we can no longer live in Belém. We have to move up to the Cerrado or somewhat higher. And that applies all around the world. This is about guidance about what to do to avoid catastrophe, which is currently what we're heading towards. Resilience is a big part of that. It's not just getting emissions down, getting electric transport. It's also preparing the waterfronts. It's preparing our nature to be stronger so it can survive the crisis coming forward. It's about the cities and what our urban environments look like. We are all being pushed to the cities. Every time there is a big drought or there are floods in the country, a lot of people abandon their homes and move to the cities. In 2050, we will be 80% living in cities around the world. We've got to make sure those cities are not made up of favelas. We've got to make sure that there's housing for everyone, that there are jobs for everyone, that there is wealth creation for everyone. We can do this with the right kind of investment. That's what that taxonomy and that shopping list is all about. This is not just Brazil. This is Nigeria. This is Indonesia. This is India. This is everywhere across the countries that are most vulnerable to climate change. And we can make them cooler by planting trees like the mango trees in Belém. We need that everywhere. We can make them cooler with the right kind of building. Stop building glass and concrete skyscrapers. Look to the past for tools and efficiency that were much better at managing heat and much better at keeping water use down. We have a lot to learn from our history that we have abandoned in the last 100 years. And it's nature. We depend, our society, our economy, our business, let alone our lives, depend on healthy nature. We have been destroying it around the world. In the oceans, I come from the South Pacific. The oceans are seeing fish taken away from them. The tuna fisheries in my country, Vanuatu, have gone because they have been destroyed by fishing fleets traveling there and taking them away. We need to manage sustainably. We can still harvest the bounty from nature if we do it right, not if we destroy it in the process. That requires rules. That requires investments. That requires improving the livelihoods of fisher people so they don't need to destroy to make a living. There's so much we need to do, but we can do because we know what's required. I worry about the oceans, but of course I worry about the forest too. We are still deforesting in Brazil. We are deforesting in the Congo really fast. we are still deforesting Indonesia. This is loco. We are killing the trees that give us life. Under Marina Silva and under Lula, we have reversed what's been happening in the last few years, but we are still doing it. We haven't stopped it. We need to go the other way. We've got to regrow the forest. If we could increase forest cover in tropical nations by 50%, we could make a massive contribution to avoiding catastrophic climate change. We're going to need to find a way to pay farmers to stop farming cattle, to stop farming palm oil, and instead farm rainforests, to grow rainforests. This is starting to happen. Over in the other room, the blue zone, they are negotiating something called Article 6, which is going to be an opportunity for rich countries to pay poor countries a carbon tax to regrow their forests. Japan, by next year, will start paying money to Indonesia for forest regrowth. We've got to make this happen fast. We've got to make this happen on a vast scale. As we travel around Brazil in 20 years' time, we've got to see a lot more forest, not less forest. We've got to create livelihoods inside those forests, not by chopping down those forests. There's much to do in this. The scale of capital we need is vast. This is a McKinsey Global Institute report, which says that we need at least $9.2 trillion US every year invested in solutions. But remember, it's the word investment. This is not paying out taxpayer dollars. This is about making sure capital goes to the right kind of investments, not the wrong kind. Stop investing in oil and gas. Start investing in clean energy, and our air will be cleaner while we're at it. Start investing in electric rail. Stop investing in petrol-based cars, and so on. It's why we need those investors that I mentioned. They have the capital. We have globally so much capital. We are awash in capital. $130 trillion just in portfolios of institutional investors. But it's in the wrong place. It's in the wrong parties. That's why we need financial engineering. That's why we need sustainable bonds. In this market, the sustainable bond market that I work in, we have grown bonds for climate-related activities from $50 billion globally when the Paris COP happened 10 years ago to now $6 trillion globally. It's working, but we need to package investments. The Brazilian government, the government of Belém, need to be working with private sector to prepare investments and make sure they're suitable to investors. That's the job that we're doing on. We've got bonds from governments. The Brazilian government only last week issued $1.5 billion of sustainable bonds. Half of that money was going to low carbon investments and half was going to social investments for climate resilience. And you know what? They got 5 times as many investors as they had bonds to sell. Imagine, this man wants to sell some bananas. He gets crowded by people trying to buy his bananas. That's what we saw in the $1.5 billion US Brazilian bond. Every government around the world is now looking at this. We have banks issuing bonds. Bank Itaú, for example. We have BNDES issuing bonds around the world. We have all sorts of water authorities and rail authorities issuing bonds. The government bond market has grown like this. It is now huge. There are 40 countries who are issuing sovereign bonds because investors are telling them, look, I know you're doing stuff that's good, but I really want you to do stuff around climate because we are very worried about climate. The insurance funds who are losing money because of climate. Governments are beginning to respond. We've published a report. It's available online with this QR code, which shows that in just 12 countries, there are $4.4 trillion of sustainable bonds for climate coming through the system in the near future. The global figure is $18 trillion. Not 18 billion, not 18 million, but 18 trillion, and not real, but US dollars. This is already huge. Is it enough? No. Is it making progress? Yes. We are 20% of the way there. We've got to grow this by 5 times. That's going to require your governments to take the action required in Taiwan, in Brazil, in Colombia, in India, in China. Those people are taking action. They've got to do more. I've just come from an event with the Brazilian Ministry of Finance, Fazenda. The government is working hard to make changes, but there are difficulties. They need citizen support. They need citizens to say to them, this is the way to go. We can find the private capital, but we need you to have the policies in place that will help investors invest in climate solutions in all our countries. That's our job as citizens, to support, to press, to push our governments and make sure that they understand the problem, that they don't ignore it like the locals in Washington, D.C. who have gone mad, and that they do what's required to make sure the money can move. We have so far 4.4 trillion. We have 18 trillion globally. The global bond market is 150 trillion. Our objective is to make the global bond market the market for the future that includes understanding the environmental challenges and doesn't ignore the environmental challenges we face. We're on that road. We have a choice. We have a choice about the kind of future we build, about the world we create for our children. At the moment, we have failed them. We have created a future that is going to be much more difficult than the world we are in now. I'm a grey hair. It's my fault, my responsibility. All I know is we are at a moment in history where we have a choice. We could keep doing things the old way, which are disastrous, which are taking us to Mordor, to the mountain in Lord of the Rings. Or we could change things differently. We can build a world that is clean, that is fair, that is equitable, that has justice for all, and that has forests for all. And maybe, it's probably too late, but maybe we'll have coral so my children can still go diving in the South Pacific instead of all of those ecosystems being destroyed. All I know is we have a choice. It's our job to make sure this change happens. Thank you. Good luck. Make it work.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. That's really astonishing. I mean, I feel so activated and so emotional. Thank you for your remarkable sharing. Yeah, I believe that that's very, very important, especially when you mention there are trillions of opportunities in the capital market, and Taiwan, we should do much better. We will do our hard work, no worry. So, thanks for all those distinguished. It's not those? Okay. Thanks for our distinguished speakers and keynote to share. From Lincoln, what's the innovation, especially the blockchain, can support the global carbon market? And from Sean, our expert on climate bond, how exactly the global market, especially capital market, has a very great power to achieve the climate change issue. So now we would like to invite for all our experts to have the panel discussion. So please, Lincoln, Sean, and we also would like to invite Rebecca Shen, the Executive Director of the Staff United Fund, and also Rose Yuan, the Director from Taiwan Research Institute, and she will also representing the think tank and NGO, also the policy recommendation side. So thank you all for joining us today. So that will be very, very our honor to have all of you to join this panel discussion. And I'm Jack Huang. I'm the consultant for the United Nations, also the staff advisor. So we can go through all those topics. Let's start from the Lincoln. Lincoln, I have a question for you. So from the carbon market to climate trust, how exactly the innovation, especially when you mention in your presentation the blockchain or other innovative tool, can really rebuild the integrity of the ESG and also the climate change? So floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Thanks. Thank you very much, Jack. I'm just taking an example here. For example, some of the Article 6 carbon credits that's been traded. A lot of things are still done on the basis of Excel spreadsheet, from what we understand, as well as the voluminous amount of documentation. It's been shuffled around. I think all these things are really a thing of the past. We all understand that some of the decarbonization projects itself are very, very intense in terms of content. Many of these things could be documented in a smart contract form. We talk about the DMRV or the MRV itself going digital. People who invest in some of these projects need to see those data points, the information properly, so that they don't be misled or they feel there's a lack of confidence in terms of the things that is on their hands. So I think what we need to do, seriously, is to harness the technology. Blockchain is great. It is also an alternative from the usual financial instruments, just like a bond, that could have all the underlying assets coupled together, managed, and issued to a new set of investors that's not necessarily in the traditional finance space, but also in the decentralized finance space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lincoln. Yeah, that's very important, especially the innovation and the creativity. So next question, I would like to go to the Sean. Thank you for your very important sharing about the global opportunity for the climate bond. So the question for you is, from your institutional experience or your expertise, what the blended finance tool, which is climate bond, can somehow de-risking the capital for developing country? Any successful case? Could you share to us? Thank you.
In finance, de-risking, blended finance, all of these things are engineering. They are not complicated. You know, to take the US, for example, the US economy has been driven by guarantees. That's a form of blended finance. At any one time for the last 200 years in the US, 15% of all bonds have been guaranteed by the government to make sure money will go to priority areas, taking the risk out of deals. So if someone wants to invest in a bridge across the Hudson River in New York, the government guarantees that they won't lose their money. Hey, that makes a pension fund very happy, because pension funds are mainly worried about safety, and they're worried about making sure, Jack, they can pay you your pension when you retire. That's what we've got to do globally. Of course, what we have to do is bring the power of the balance sheet from rich countries to poor countries, sharing the risk. There are many ways of doing this. In the Blue Zone, there are about 100 conversations underway about engineering. But you know what? We don't need to know. What we need to know is there are engineers. There are plumbers. What's required is the rich governments of the world to say, we will provide guarantees and support. It's very simple. It's very simple. If Norway provides a guarantee for investments here, not money, you're not going to get a check. Not going to happen. But if something goes wrong, they will step in and bail out the investors. Even just partially, that can make the money flow. So blended finance, as it's called, is critically important to shift around capital flows. I said earlier, we have the capital. It's pooled up in the wrong places. To get it out, we've got to actually have some blended finance to get it flowing. Think about cutting a ditch in the side of a pool over here in the Amazon. The water starts flowing, and once it flows, it keeps going. That's what blended finance is. But the detail, you know, there's a lot of people working on that detail. We just need to support them.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for a very good answer. Yeah, we really need to support those people, as you keep emphasizing. Capital is there, power is there, but how we can use that properly, that's the key word. So thanks for that. And next, I would like to invite Rebecca Shen. The question for you, how is your experience or your observation on climate finance policy frameworks, especially that can really attract the private capital? Floor is yours.
Hi. Hi. Hi everyone again. As a lawyer, I'm also a corporation lawyer, so I want to follow the answer based on the Nico and Sean. I think the blended finance is a very good solution for our private capital. However, I think when we talk about the blended finance, I always emphasize that's not a subsidy mechanism. It's a architecture for relocating the risk. So from the legal perspective, I think the branded finance platform succeeds only when the architecture of trust is intentionally designed. So from my perspective, I can maybe give some brief about my answer. I think that the trust is not a soft concept. It needs to be designed and on a legal construction. So there are three elements I consider is very important. First, a clear governance framework. So we need to set the governance framework in the corporation, and we need to cite every human system involved all the framework. And the second, I think the integrity mechanism, especially needs the MRV and the contractual accountability is very important, because when we talk about the legal, we always need to sign a contract, you know. So if we can set the very trust contract between the parties, we can set the trust and the credibility to set the branded finance into the great platform. And the third one, we think the predictable system, like we can have more expectation on what we need to go, and we have more monitor system on the based on the legal environmental. I think we can set more credible platform to let the branded finance become trust and efficient.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, from your legal perspective, that's really, really important, especially in this global carbon or private sectors. So the next, but not the least, I would like to invite the Rose Yan, also our good friend. From your perspective, especially you are from the think tank. So what's the policy planning, recommendation or policy planning perspective? What exactly instrument do you think the government can decide to promote the climate finance? The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jack, and thank for all other speakers and panelists. I would like to echo the points that you just mentioned earlier. Like Taiwan Research Institute, we support our partners in Asia to conduct and implement public policies. So when talking about climate finance, we do some of the case studies about how other countries do a lot. So we do see that governments actually want to accelerate the climate finance. But what we also observed is that the system is still fragmented. So, and also, if we want to scale up the climate finance, not only the investors, in the long term, people, especially the general public and small business, need to be included as well. So I would like to highlight three types of policy instruments that we have observed, and they are useful to unlock the private investment. The first one is that the government should provide a clear and stable policy signals to the markets, because investors, they can take risks, but they cannot take or believe in uncertainty. So when governments publish long-term pathways such as phase-out schedules, renewable targets, or carbon pricing roadmaps, they will provide the private sector with a clear direction, and consistency is the first catalyst. And the second one, the governments should expand the de-risking tools, especially for early stage or first of a kind projects. Because many climate solutions, they are still considered high risk and not profitable at this stage, such as energy storage, hydrogen, natural-based solutions, CCUS, circular economies, but they are all the major strategies that we would like to implement for a net zero transition. So there are some financial tools, just like Sean have mentioned, blended finance, public guarantees, and first loss mechanisms that government can use to help to shift the risk curves of these new technologies. And we can see that if when the public sector, they take the first step, then the private capital will flow. And the third one is that we need policies that make climate finance more accessible to citizens and small business. And I think maybe the technology and the case that Lincoln has just mentioned might help in this topic, because right now climate finance still feels exclusive. It is technical, it is institutional, but real transitions will require participations from many people, like households, farmers, or even communities. So government can support, can provide tools such as community solar, green saving products, SME transition credits, or even local climate bonds to help to solve this problem. And the last but not the least, what underpinning all of this is trust. So people has to, or investors has to trust in data, in governance, and in how the money is used, not a greenwashing or something. So government has to invest in a better disclosure rules, green taxonomies, just as mentioned like previous speakers, and transparent tracking systems mentioned by Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you very much for you help me to summarize everybody's key point. And since we still have like 5 minutes, so I would like to take this great opportunity to get some further add-on question that's not on our agenda. So I hope you can take this question and try to find your answer. So from Sean and Lincoln, so the question for you two will be, so especially Sean, your expertise and your professional experience, how do you see the innovation or technology like blockchain or real-world asset, RWA, that's a very popular term. How do you think those technology or innovation can support the global financing, especially the blended financing? That's for you. Maybe risky or opportunity. And for Lincoln, what's that role supposed to be, the technology and innovation? So floor is yours, Sean.
Digital communication devices like blockchain are plumbing. There are a lot of them. You know, in Brazil, they have a system called PIX, which the central bank set up after trying to get the commercial banks for years to set up. They never did. So it's a payment system which 93% of all Brazilians use now, and it is zero cost. This is an incredible achievement in Brazil. Taiwan doesn't have this, nor does Europe. In fact, in Europe and the US, we sort of use Visa card and MasterCard, and they make billions of profits by charging ridiculous prices which block inclusion in the financial system. There are many such digital solutions that we need to focus on. I want PIX to go global, for example. They're talking to India about collaborating with India's scheme at the moment. There are many, many solutions, but so blockchain is just one technology within it. I'm not going to say whether it's going to work or not. That's your job. And that's the job of the regulators and the banks who will use your system. I just want my toilet to flush. And I want my bank money to go somewhere else at zero cost. If you can make that happen, I'm happy. If you can't make it happen, we'll go somewhere else. It's really what we can. And I want it to bias towards green. So if blockchain is supporting lower cost movement of capital towards green solution, yes, 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 which of course is what you're doing. I know that. And carbon, etc. There are many other things, digital solutions, that are way more anxious for me. For example, data centers are going crazy. Some are green, some are not green. They're using gas plants and coal plants. So every time I use ChatGPT, which I use, it's a great tool, I think, how am I going to get those data centers to only use renewable energy, to only recycle their water instead of taking it out of the rivers and then spending it out, and to capture the heat the data centers have to be able to heat our cities or cool our cities. That's what we need. These are procurement rules. These are rules that governments need to enforce and investors can support. Or how can we use technology and digital technology to ensure that we find faster solutions for air conditioning, which is consuming so much. I love air conditioning. I don't want to be outside. I want to be in here when I'm working. But I need it to be super efficient. And I need to stop the wastage. We can reduce the energy use in air conditioning by down to 30% with smart solutions. That requires IT. That requires AI to do it, and so on and so on. I want buildings to be much more efficient. We need IT to do this because we now have these incredible tools. These tools to quickly navigate around the best research in the world. These tools not to write essays for our kids in schools. That's not so important. But rather the tools to get the best of science distilled fast. So in Belém, in Manaus, in Bogota, we can get the best research from Beijing, from Tokyo, from Singapore today, not in 12 years' time. And that's what we need to do super fast, because the world has got to be changed. It's got to be changed double time. Now, it's only going to change in a way if we do this right, where the air is cleaner, where the forest is better, where our livelihoods are strong. We can make more money to pay to put food on the table for our kids. We've got to be clear on those objectives. But IT can get us there super fast if we use it right. That's what I'm worried about.
Thank you so much. That's very incredible. So now the floor is you, Lincoln. So how would you like to think the technology? You can either echo what Sean just said or share with us how the critical role the blockchain should be.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jack, and great insights, Sean. I'll just speak a little bit of the work I'm doing at the UN ESCAP, which Jack is aware of. I'm currently advising the Central Bank of Maldives, which they call the Maldives Monetary Authority. And what we are seeing there is the construction of an innovation hub, which is, like what Sean said, the importance of reining in the technology, the skills, the information, the data as fast as possible. Not today, but yesterday. The future is too long. Essentially, this is crucial because just like in Belém and many other countries, Maldives are also facing the challenges of what we call climate change. And the climate change itself comes in the form of destructive forces to their whole ecosystem and their livelihood. But whilst they are trying to rescue and trying to find investors and doing all the things necessary, we are going into basics as to establishing what is the value of a coral ecosystem. Very often, I think we race ahead and trying to save something, but we are also trying to ensure that traditional finance could come in. Meaning, AXA, for example, which we work with in Maldives, wants to insure. But how much is it? $1? $100? 1 million? There has to be a science to that. There has to be efforts to really find out all these things. And they are critical because with value, you can protect it. And the protection itself would also give in investments. And of course, this is not just a conversation about climate. Finance itself is also about climate justice, as you know. climate compensation. If a boat or a ship collides and the oil seeps through and destroys the place, how are we going to get the refund, the compensation, the insurance? Technology plays a big part in that as well. But also it is an interesting thing because from technology, apart from the climate finance itself, if you take a look at Maldives, and some of you may have been there, heard of it, it's just as beautiful in Belém, Sao Paulo, or Brazil. It is facing climate change, it is facing the rising sea levels, but information and research has actually shown us, and we've seen that they are not sinking if possible. Because Maldives, if you research, is built on an atoll. It's an atoll, which means that at the bottom of the atoll itself are all the live organisms, the corals and the living ecosystem. If they live, they will ensure that Maldives continue to float. If they die, then Maldives will definitely sink. And I think it is the key thing here that without the technology, we wouldn't be very, very aware of all these things. And I think last but not least, just like what Sean has said, we have a choice. But I think the important thing is that with the choice comes hope. And the hope will center on the young people like them, the young people here, which will use technology and carry forward and execute those things that we are talking about on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Lincoln. Thank you very much. And the last question for both two ladies and two gentlemen. I mean, that's just a very creative question. Assume you can control everybody's mind in blue zone, in green zone. What's the most outcome for COP30 you wish to achieve? What's the outcome? So use one sentence or two sentences. After COP30, what you expect to happen if you have the power to control everybody? So maybe we start with Rebecca Shen.
Hi, because microphone is on my hand. However, I want to answer the question before that. I want to mention because we all know the action is important, and we let all parties into the same action in the same track. I think this is very important to set a trusty and integrity framework. So that's why I think even we have several roles, like the diversity topics in several kind of, even we are in the different country, however, we have the same goal. So how can we make a good communication to involve all the diversity topic into this platform? This is just also my answer for this question. I hope we can build a platform and to involve and to listen more voice from different kind of insights and topic. So that's why maybe we can have more consensus, yeah, in the end, and we can know where we want to go. If we need to do some action like the branded finance we mentioned several times, we still need to how to do this and in a standardized system. So how to set a same goal, I think is my hope we can get this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca Sen. And next, I would like to invite Rose. But I want, because you are from the think tank and policy recommendation side, I want very precise answer. For example, if I can control everybody in COP30, I want Article number 6 under the Paris Agreement can be accepted by all countries without argument. That's kind of clear answer. So from you, if you have this power to control everybody, what kind of outcome or consensus you wish to achieve after COP30? Floor is yours.
Well, this is really hard because I just prepared a very conceptual answer to this.
I want precise one.
Precise one? Maybe I can answer later.
Sure. So let me invite maybe Lincoln. Lincoln. Yes. Floor is yours.
Sorry.
Very clear answer.
No, I think the key thing here, in my view about Article 6, which we have been involved in projects itself, is, and I think Sean mentioned that, it is a beautiful arrangement, voluntary in nature though at this moment, between the country of the global north mostly and the global south. There is a bridge through the Article 6 where projects could be financed from the different ways that Sean talked about, so that the global south will be able to maintain some of their focus, developments and projects on the climate itself, and ensure that the world will still have a much better future. And I think for us, at least, and I'll leave the rest to Sean, is that it is a commodity, a real good commodity for the global south to really trade with the global north in an exchange that is going to ensure that it is fair and also better for the future of the world. But on my side, on my ending point from what Jack has said itself, to me it's still about the 7 C's which I saw on my presentation. It is about the capital that we have talked about here, looking at the carbon, getting the countries in the 6.2 to rally together, the companies as well for the Article 6.4. But let us not forget, there are challenges, but there are solutions. The communities, the civil societies, and the children will be the people that will make the changes for us in climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Lincoln. So, Sean, floor is yours.
Just remember, the money to do what we need to do does exist, and that money wants to do something on climate. I hope that we will leave this COP with a really critical understanding that our future is something we can create, that it's not something that we have to take and live with. That isn't the case for everyone's lives. For a lot of people, all you can do is get the food on the table for your kids. But as a society, as an economy, if we work together, we can create a future which is sustainable, which we have not been doing. But it will require us, and I hope this COP will be the bridge, because the Americans haven't been here. The local Americans are staying in Washington, D.C. And as a result, over in the Blue Zone, everyone's just talking, and they're getting on with it, and they're planning a future. We need to understand our future is together. It's not separate. It's not with Brazilians saying the Chinese are wrong. It's got to be working with the Chinese. It's the Singaporeans saying we're going to work with the Danish. It's with the ordinary citizens of Colombia feeling an affinity with the ordinary citizens of Tanzania and Uganda. That way we have a chance. If we don't do that, we actually don't have a chance. We will see the loss of Belém. We will see the loss of it. This is the COP of making that choice for the kind of future that we want our children to live in.
Thank you, Sean. Very, very remarkable. So last but not least, Rose Yuan, floor is yours. What will be your answer?
Okay, thank you for giving some more time. So I'd like to see the roadmap to 1.3 trillion can be accepted, and not only by the officials, but also by all of the participants, representatives from all of the sectors, because climate actions are just like seeds. They need water to get growing. And how can we get the water? We cannot rely on some random weather, raining weather. We should rely on some concrete water systems. So climate finance systems are like infrastructures. So it requires all of the efforts from everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you very much. And thanks for all our special panelists. They share the very insightful ideas to us from climate bond, from private sector, from startup and technology, and also from think tank and policy recommendation. So we thank you to come to our event, and we wish we really have the concrete answer after COP30. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the speakers.